Cash for keys. Dan, this is kind of your territory, man, because typically I'm not super involved in any of the places after we
Yeah.
buy them. So I know you've had these conversations with a lot of people, some good, some bad. But, what's your take on sort of how to go about this process, which is realistically very, very important if you're going to be buying off market property, especially because tenant problems are one of the most common situations that we're able to buy things with a big discount.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of landlords are surprisingly scared or afraid to talk to their tenants or disturb their tenants for whatever reason. I don't know why it is. Because sometimes the tenants are perfectly fine, right?
I
They're
know.
like, "Oh, cool, I need to move, right on."
Yeah.
Other times they're like, obviously buttholes, but you still have your steps you can go through. I think a couple things like, obviously, you got to be firm but fair,
Hmm.
right? And you're walking a fine line with some of these tenants. So if you go in guns a blazing, that could delay it, right? Because ultimately, like if we're in our market, other markets are a lot easier to get rid of people, right? In these markets that we operate in on the West Coast, it's very, very tenant friendly. So especially during COVID, it was a challenge because you didn't really have any recourse to get people out because there's obviously an eviction moratorium. But going into it, if you come guns a blazing, you could potentially push it out 90 days because we have 90-day notice to have people leave if we're going to sell.
Hmm.
So, like if you're going to flip a property, well, with that, like that's when the eviction process starts. So then, if you could buy a property and potentially be 6 months out of figuring this thing out, and then finally getting them out.
Hmm.
So you're walking in, fine line. Don't come in guns a blazing, but also you have to be somewhat firm. I would say maybe just to like summarize this whole thing is like don't step over dollars to pick up dimes because when you look at your spread on these things, if you have to pay somebody 5,000, yeah, it sucks that you're paying them 5,000, but you're gonna make more money, and that tenant is
Hmm.
more of a risk to your property than anything.
Yeah.
And also looking at it like being creative, like we've showed up and helped people move.
Hmm.
Like when we started out, like we trailer truck, like let's go help this person move. If we have to rent a U-Haul, like that's $500. That's nothing. If that's what
I
gets
know.
them motivated, especially if they're older people, like moving is a big deal for them. And so it's like, you know what? Let's do that for you. Like they don't necessarily even care about the money. They just need that help to move. So get creative with that. What do they need? On this one we're doing now, we're going the cash for keys. Part of it's going to go to the deposit of their new
Hmm.
place. So it's like, fine, get access to property manager. We're going to pay that deposit for you, and then the excess will come to you after we walk through the property and you've moved out. I mean, that's very straightforward and simple. And so it's just figuring out what their biggest challenge with moving will be and helping them along. If it's money, just because they can't afford to like actually put a deposit on a place and do first and last, because some landlords do. You're moving into a $1,400 place and you need $5,000 to move in. Like that's hard for people. So if we can help that, then we will. And so being creative, being firm but fair, and also not worrying about the little pennies that you might be losing when you have such a big back end exit.
Yeah. I mean, and even more at its core, it's just not being afraid to talk to people and to treat
Yes.
people like human beings is the biggest thing. I mean, this is something that's always driven me crazy about real estate in general. Is there's very much this us and them mentality between landlords and tenants. I say this, we've been talking about how tenants are scummy for the last half an
Right. I
hour,
know.
but at the same time, I mean, it's not tenants are scummy. It's just there's scummy people that are in the world, and but at the same time, you have to like let them show you that that's their side because there's a lot of people that will be perceived that way just because they are a renter or they live in a distressed property. And then once you kind of get to the root of who they are, you talk to them like human beings, you treat them fairly, they'll show their true colors. And you probably will be surprised 90% of the time how willing they are to work with you. And, honestly, they probably just have some situations in their life that you maybe can't understand. You seem to be sympathetic to that, but on that same vein, don't let them take advantage of you. Get everything in writing, do things by the books, but don't be afraid, to sacrifice a little bit of your profit to help out these other human beings that are in a rough situation. They're being displaced so that you can probably make more money than they make in an entire year. And you need
Yeah.
to
Or
understand
multiple
that.
years.
Multiple years, honestly, right? And you need to
Yep.
understand that. And if you're not going to be, willing to give them fairness, then honestly, this business probably isn't right for you. If you want to, also keep your soul as a good person, and that's something that's so undervalued in real estate. And I don't know why. But it's one of the reasons as well that landlords get such a bad rap. Thinking about having these conversations, you're just like, absolutely hell, no way I'm going to do that. Then honestly, you don't want to make that much money. And Like, if you find deals that have that, give us a call, because we will buy them all
We will buy them from
day. We know, without even a question. You know, we've made so much money off of properties from people that were just afraid to have hard conversations. And at the end of the day, hard conversations are the easiest way to avoid any sort of issues in your life, whether that's, you know, with an investment property, you know, that you're losing money on, whether that's in your marriage, you know, whether that's in like friendships, like your employment, you know, even like anything like that. If you just have something on your mind, you have something you need to figure out, try talking to people. You'd be amazed at what you can get done.
That's simple.
Thanks for listening. Please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out at collectingkeyspodcast.com for tips and guides on starting your own real estate investment and wholesaling business.